Well, thank you. I know it's the getting to the nearing the end here, and I appreciate everybody still showing up and participating. Really appreciate the event today, and looking really forward to this session. It's very timely. I feel like we're in a season in the midst of a wildfire season right now that has been really, really challenging. So anyways, my name is Seth Hutcherson. I lead our utilities practice here at Skydio, and really excited to be hosting this session today. We've got two experts, and they bring very unique, very unique experiences. And so I'm going to introduce both Mike Spangler and Alex Ramirez to the stage here today. Mike is been with Idaho Power for many, many years, and Alex with AEP. So to kick it off, I'm going to have Mike go ahead and do quick introductions.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Mike Spangler. I work for Idaho Power Company. I've been with them for 38 years, and I had our UAS program, managed that, and but long career through mostly power delivery side. So actually starting as a custodian at the company, working my way up through transformer mechanic, substation work, lines work, line crew, power quality. So a broad area that I've worked under, and for probably the last 5.5, 6 years, I've been leading the UAS program here at the company.
Fantastic. And Alex, you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you. Yes, Alex Ramirez. I'm part of the AEP Texas group. We're glad to be here. We got part of the crew here also on the stage, with the audience joining us today. Those are the guys that make stuff happen, and so very, very blessed to be working with a fine team. My role is a Vice President of Customer Experience, and in this role, what we've done at AEP Texas is pretty interesting. So we have the customer-facing group coupled with the technology solutions team. And so we often look for ways to improve that customer experience and make sure we're delivering value to our communities. My background is primarily on the distribution operations engineering side. And so I started with the company, with the engineering group, moved over to resource planning, work scheduling, spent some time at the regulatory side, and managed one of the 5 districts at AEP Texas. So through my career of 20 years, I've learned quite a bit. And so I'm pleased to be here with you all to share the experience and the journey that we're going through at AEP Texas.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it, Alex. You both bring a very unique set of experiences. Mike, as a program manager, I know that you've been in the field for many, many years, and I think your expertise with how you're mitigating, the wildfire challenges and are going to bring a unique set of experiences. Same with Alex. Spent a lot of time in operations, and super excited. It's obviously a hot topic, no pun intended. So I'm going to set the stage a bit here. Really, there's been a number of research done, and over the years, a lot has gone into understanding the impact of wildfires. When you look at it, since United Nations produced a report back in 2022 that really outlined the concerns and challenges that we're faced globally around wildfire mitigation. And when we think about this, we're seeing FEMA since 1980, statistically, we're seeing 125% year-over-year growth in wildfire activities. So staggering growth. And just this year, more than 7 million acres in the US has been impacted by wildfires. So this is a unique and long-standing challenge within the business. And I think for today's purposes, we're going to do a review on what we call the 5 R's, and really bring it to life with both of your expertise in your organizations. And we're going to start by introducing the 5 R's with the review stage. And Mike, I think you've got a really unique set of experiences with Idaho Power around kind of enhancement of situational awareness. So I'm going to lead off with you and let you kind of share your background and how you're looking to impact this.
Yeah, so it's kind of been a really interesting year for us in Idaho. We have just been on fire. It's been terrible. A lot of acres burned. We've lost a lot of our infrastructure to fire. And it's just been a really smoky hot summer. But we're going to talk about a lot of different technology today. And, but I wanted to start out with what really drives this is our wildfire mitigation plan. Yeah. And the thing about it is we got all this tech, we've got this plan, but it's the people that we have, the team of people that put this plan together, the team of people that execute this plan is what really makes it work. But some of the things we do, we use wildfire modeling software to understand what our level of risk is in those areas. And then from that, we've currently have 149 wildfire zones. And then from those wildfire zones, we create daily FPI, or Fire Potential Index, weather forecasts on 6-hour blocks, 24 hours a day. These weather forecasts for every 149 zones are coming out. So our field personnel know how to respond and what they can and can't do out in the field. But a lot of this stems from our use of technology such as drones, weather stations, assessing the field conditions. And we use about 230 Idaho Power-owned weather stations by the end of the year to give us some of that. And then we also use wildfire detection cameras to get some of this kind of real-time situational awareness.
That's very unique. You know, you've got a broad, vast area that you're trying to cover, and it's very rugged, and I'm sure you're obviously trying to enhance that with new technologies. So yeah, it's a really good point.
That's one thing I probably should touch on real quickly is our service territory has everything from high elevation mountains to large desert, arid deserts to irrigated cropland, and we're basically stretched from eastern Oregon all the way to the east of Idaho and up into the central part of the state. So really diverse terrain.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Alex, how about you guys? How do you enhance your situational awareness?
Similarly, the AEP Texas footprint is pretty vast. We cover a good part of South Texas and West Texas. Our footprint extends over 97,000 square miles. We serve just north of 350 cities in the state of Texas, a lot of rural communities. And so companies pursuing a similar modeling tool like the one Mike just described, what I'll share or add is the fact that there's good public data sets out there that give us intel to understand just the threat level across the state. For those of you that are just starting the journey, there's good information out there provided by USDA and also other Forest Service agencies. And so anyway, if you don't have something like that in your company, I encourage you to go out there and just explore the public information that's out there. And it's typically an output of fire simulator models, 20 years worth of historical data. What we're also doing is incorporating current climatology conditions to better understand trends or maybe shifts, right, from what we experienced in years past. And so just wanted to share that with the group. In terms of situational awareness, we're enhancing that continuously. We have sensors currently out there on our distribution system. And what we're doing is expanding the deployment of these sensors to better understand the condition of the assets. And so that gives us intel on how well our infrastructure is performing. And comparing that against the threat levels that are identified across the state, then it helps us prioritize, right? And it builds the sense of urgency to make sure that we go out there and inspect proactively. The goal is to identify the issues before failure occurs. So what we're doing is we're pursuing deployment of 3 specific technologies. One of them is studying the vegetation and using satellite imagery to better understand how that currently sits across our footprint. And a few things that we're trying to find there is not just risk trees or vegetation that's close to the lines, but also fields that could serve as fuel for wildfires. And so the whole idea behind it is that we use that intelligence to couple with our current inspection practices and make sure that we pay, unique and special attention to the areas that are the most exposed. Let's see. Other technology that we're working on is additional line sensors that study the radio frequency change. And so the whole concept behind this is before a permanent fault occurs, we want to be able to get to it, right? And so gathering that intelligence and then prioritizing will be a critical activity for us. And obviously what makes all this work is drone technology. We don't have folks to be out there all the time. And so what we're working on is developing a scheme where we're able to use drone technology to get out there with a higher frequency. And not just on scheduled missions, but also on demand. I'll pause there. That's what we have in motion, and we're going to be actively pursuing all these 3 programs in 2025. That's our plan.
That's fantastic. You have your hands full.
Yes, sir, we do.
You have your hands full. So the next one is risk reduction. And this is interesting because you all are doing risk assessments. You kind of shared some of the tools and technologies that you're using. I'd love to hear more about how you're starting to implement kind of the assessment when you lead into or pre or during wildfire season. Mike,
so I mentioned earlier our Fire Potential Index, FPI. We have a team of atmospheric scientists, like most of the utilities that deal with this, that set these FPI forecasts out for us, right? So that right there is a big help in reducing the risk. But also our weather stations, as I mentioned, satellite imagery, assessing fuel conditions real time, and then that's something we can use drones for, get directly back to our atmospheric science teams in areas of concern for us. But it's also really enhanced patrols. So our traditional way has been foot patrols. They take a while. They're inherently putting people in dangerous situations. So using drones to do enhanced inspections where we get maybe a little bit better look, bird's eye of our assets, and is another big key for us. Then the other thing is, really when we look at it, it's vegetation management enhancement, it's line hardening, and the increased enhanced inspections.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. How about you, Alex? When you think about the way you assess your risk, either before season or during season, how are you conducting those risk assessments?
Seth, similar to what Mike described, one of the items that I want to highlight though here in the risk assessment is a capability that we're very interested in developing, and that's using drone technology to be able to assess the environment conditions. So it's not just our infrastructure failing or finding the defects that guide the missions, but it's also every time that we get the drone up in the air, scanning the environment to identify potential issues that could pose a threat to our infrastructure, right? And ultimately what we're trying to do is get to the issue first for the benefit of our communities. And so using the idea is that we get the drone up in the air, scan for any signs of fire or smoke. We're also interested in understanding the ground, the soil conditions, and use that intelligence right from an environmental perspective to bring it back in, compare it against asset health, right? And then high risk zones just based on climatology trends. So that's the one area that I've challenged the team to figure out. And so we're in the process of working through that. We've partnered with one of our universities' research center, and so they're working very close with the state. And so we feel that collaborating with them and developing a tool that helps us quickly identify this through artificial intelligence is a way to also support community efforts. Ultimately, nobody wants a wildfire.
Yeah.
And so we want to build a network where we're collaborating with our communities as well to make sure that we're leveraging each other's resources.
It's fantastic. I feel like the ability to leverage the onboard technology and do it efficiently to kind of scan the environment is somewhat unique. I mean, we hear that where you're inspecting assets, but using a drone to just be leveraging where what's taking place on the ground seems to be unique. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's particularly helpful when you have an active fire and it's burning towards your line, and you can get up and get that perspective from up in the air instead of trying to traverse all that terrain to see where it's actually at. But I wanted to mention really a low-tech risk reduction thing, and that is actually putting the tools into our field personnel that they're going to need to help suppress if they get into a situation or protect an asset. And that's just the training, and also water pumper trucks and Pulaskis and shovels and those type of things. So I mean, it can be really low tech to super high tech.
Yeah, I want to introduce PSPS and EPSS, if you don't mind, Mike. Just share the concept and what that means for folks that maybe don't know what those terms mean.
Yeah, so In California, they call it EPSS. We call it EPS, Enhanced Protection Settings. But that is basically settings that we put our protective devices into so that if we have a trip on the system, that it does not reclose back in and start a fire, right? And so when that happens, we're patrolling downstream of that protective device and getting an all clear before we can re-energize. PSPS is a public safety power shutoff, and that is where you proactively, because of weather conditions, shut power off to a certain zone, and you're impacting those customers until you have patrolled the whole line segment all the way to the end and determined that it's safe and clear. So that can have kind of lasting impacts. They're without power for a long time. There's people with medical devices and certain kind of conditions that it's really a hardship, and it's a last resort. You know,
Took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, it's a last resort. That's not something that we like to do. We've only done one of them, but we've come close many times, and so.
Yeah. No, that's great. I just want to introduce that because I know that's going to be a topic we'll discuss. This is a video. I want to kick this off. This actually is kind of talking about, Mike, if I'm not mistaken, this is one of your inspectors doing an inspection on a pole.
Yeah, this is a transmission patrol guy using X2 drone, a Skydio X2 drone, to just kind of systematically go down this quadrant of the pole, and he's kind of zooming in, looking at real time. You know, do I have all my parts and pieces there? Does everything look tight? Is there any damage? And you know, he really can get in there and get right around the asset and see things from all angles. And I think that's just what that illustrates.
Yeah.
It's a pretty tactical piece of equipment for us.
Yeah, and these are obviously the inspections necessary to keep your infrastructure running safely, and and you know, while you're in wildfire season, it's really important that you're doing these.
Right. So there's several types of inspections. We have our normal inspections, and then we have a pre-fire season and a patrol as well. So these lines are getting looked at multiple times.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Let's go to the third R. So readiness. And obviously the tie-in here is, you know, vegetation management, I know, is a big topic these days. And Alex, I think you mentioned this already, but love to maybe expand on this a little bit more, how you're thinking about, you know, use of vegetation management and how you do that today and kind of looking ahead as well.
Yeah, thanks, Seth. So we have very active vegetation management programs already. But from a wildfire perspective, it's more than just trimming for aerial clearance, right? It's about making sure that there's not fuel, right, close. It only takes one fire to be devastating for a community. So we want to make sure that we identify those proactively, and then we use that intelligence to trigger subsequent activities, right? Whether it's going out there and removing a tree, or maybe working with a landowner to address potentially vegetation that seems to be a threat. And so that's the angle or the scope that we want to take here. I mentioned two solutions that we are proposing for in 2025. One using satellite imagery for vegetation intelligence, and the other is the sensors that help us understand whether or not there's something fixing to break. In Texas, there's a lot of land that doesn't necessarily have very dense vegetation, but there's a lot of brush fields, right? Acres and acres of open land with brush that could serve as a fuel. And so we want to be able to identify the cases where we have our line either sitting in those fields or adjacent to them. And so it's more than just trimming a tree where you just back off to get the clearing on the aerial from the conductor. The other thing that we intend to do, we don't want to get the information that it's very functional and just for one specific purpose. And so as we use the intelligence to deploy the drone, we're really deploying it to collect information that'll help us in multiple fronts, right? And so even though intelligence is specific to vegetation, it triggers an action for the drone to go out there, and we're not just looking for the vegetation that could pose a threat or address a risk tree. We're also out there looking, for example, birds that may be nesting up in the arm, right, which also could be an issue. And so just wanted to make that clarification, is that the idea is that we couple these solutions, and as we execute the mission, we're gathering intelligence that we can then bring back, dissect, and probably funnel through different specialty functions, right, for analysis.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Mike, tell us a little bit about, I know you're thinking of kind of the aerial overview as I describe it, maybe pre and post season. Tell us more about what that is.
So, I just want to highlight one of the programs we've been pretty successful with is we do these fuel clearing and thinning programs with governmental agencies. And, one of the things that we're discussing is, to kind of assess how successful that is just to go in and do a 2D scan, 2D capture of the area, and then after we do the project, come back in again and see how effective that was. Yeah. And so, but there's just a lot of value in the vegetation management piece because it's proven, right? You get a lot of value out of that. So.
Yeah. You mentioned when we were talking leading into this that you have some unique examples where, season to season, you have regrowth and it causes examples where normally you wouldn't have that, but your environment produces new grass.
Right.
And tell more about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a different kind of vegetation maybe than was there pre-fire. Post-fire, we've seen fuels grow very rapidly like cheat grass, and it grows very, very fast, tall. And so then like 2 years after a fire, there's actually another fire in the same area, and it just went nuts because there was so much rapid fuel. Yeah. Sagebrush takes longer to grow. Cheatgrass is very aggressive, and it's a fuel that dries out very quickly, and it can just really take off. So it's not always what you think it is going to be. You really need to do these kind of assessments, and using the drones to do that is an effective means.
Yeah. Well, you both have very somewhat different environments, I think, and I think you're trying to find ways to. It's not always the overhanging trees, or it could be other brush areas like you mentioned, Alex. But it's interesting to hear the perspective on both.
Well, and in our case too, Seth, it's a trap that you can fall into thinking that, well, I don't have big canopies, right, or trees getting into the line. Yeah. But from a wildfire perspective, it's just as dangerous for any electrical equipment to come in contact with that brush. And so it's tough, right, because it's not the vegetation that California has. Yeah. But it still poses a threat, right? And we have experienced a number of significant wildfires in the state of Texas, and so we want to make sure we contribute to mitigate that risk.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Let's move to the next R, response, and love to Mike, kick us off a little bit about this. How do you guys respond to wildfires or incidents, and walk through that process?
Yeah, so and our PSPS is a little different than it is in California from the aspect of the weather. You guys have the Santa Ana winds down here, and you kind of know they're coming, and it's a little easier to forecast. I know some of that stuff's done, a week out. Yeah. Typically with our storms, they're these dry, intense heat, lightning storms. They're little microbursts, and they're very aggressive, and they're gone in 30 to 40 minutes. And so they're, although we can most of the time predict when they're going to be there, they will not go in the path build where we think they're going to build. They end up in some other location. So that makes it a little bit tough. But when we're doing this PSPS patrol, as you can imagine, so you're trying to get the power back onto those communities, and you're trying to do it safely. Yeah. But it is a process that is very manual, right? You're trying to get people out to inspect. They're looking for really big items. It's not a detailed patrol. You're looking for lines down or broken components. And even for us, it's been an issue of finding resources at times because in Idaho, I remember just a year ago or so we had a PSPS. We were sure we were going to have to initiate in a part of our state. A lot of the line people were gone elk hunting. So it's just, really the drones can help us. I don't want to say really a force multiplier, but maybe it is. I mean, you can cover a lot of ground in certain areas. Some areas it's still faster to use a pickup truck. Yep. But there is a lot of hazardous situations where the drone can really help us out. And then, the other thing is, when we do all this work, it's a lot of people behind the scenes, not only the patrol people, you've got people helping to supply these people and all the logistics.
Yeah, very labor intensive. It's and you know, I think you nailed a point. When you go into these events, there's a lot of resources and there's a lot of coordination that has to go into it, right? And obviously it's very impactful for your customers. This is the last kind of step effort to keep the grid safe and the customers safe. But knowing that is, you know, what has to be done, it just creates a lot of coordination and resource allocation for sure. How about you guys, Alex?
Not specific to PSPS, but anytime that our system is de-energized, then it has to be energized, whether it's a fault that happened or a storm that came in and caused some of the overcurrent protection to trip. It's important for our field, and they take it very seriously, that before they energize any section of line, they got to confirm, right, that the infrastructure is where it needs to be, that everything looks in good operating condition before we energize. And this is primarily done for safety purposes, right? Both public and employee safety. And there's a very close coordination out in the field, right? Where you have a member that is the one responsible to make sure, right, that those working under them are going out and walking, patrolling the line. Drone technology helps you be more efficient in the process, right? And so I see the potential in having a concept like the one I heard earlier today, which was not necessarily a 1-to-1 ratio or one drone for every 30 folks, but rather the other way around, right? Hopefully in a future state where you have more drone activity that's able to go out and scan the environment for you to confirm that while the system was de-energized, everything, you know, is normal, right? And is safe to re-energize. And so, and that applies really to every event, right? We have the biggest coastal exposure in the state of Texas. And so we deal a lot with hurricanes and storms. And so, and typically they come in and damage or trip some of our equipment. And so that's the process that we use to make sure everybody stays safe.
Yeah, that's you know, I think at the end of the day, Mike, one of the things that I'm thinking is, you know, if you have to scan every square mile of your environment when you go into these events, there's places where this is private land and they're hard to reach areas. And I can only imagine the impact that it takes to get that back online safely.
Yeah, that's true. And so, you know, it's a big coordinated effort. And one thing I wanted to touch on here is that, you know, when you do one of these, you try to think of every scenario, right, that you're going to encounter, and you practice all this stuff. But you learn lessons from doing it, and then you just got to go back and fine tune your process, because there's always something that didn't go quite right or that you didn't think of. And so, that's where also the use of drones. Hey, where can we tactically stage drone teams to help us? And that's all things that we're exploring right now.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. You know, one of the things that we highlight is the tools necessary to operating these environments. There's a lot of coordination, as mentioned, but having the ability for field teams to be able to see your grid and your environments, you know, as they're doing those is really important. And I know that, you know, these events, you have to patrol at night at times. You know, they're very challenging conditions, and obviously we're working as a solution to kind of give you all the tools necessary, like night patrol operations and integration of base layers to have visual data for your drone operators, and hopefully that'll, over time, it's only going to become more valuable.
Yeah, and I think the integration with some of those layers, like you're talking about on screen, would be a huge improvement to what we have now, and really add to the situational awareness of the pilots. So they're all positive things for us.
Yeah. No, that's great. All right, last R, recovery. These are obviously post-incident recovery efforts. Alex, I don't know if you want to, or Mike, if you want to kick it off?
Yeah, you know, and it's just kind of a repeat, really, of kind of what I said on some of the vegetation stuff. But the fuels can be dynamic after a fire, right? And so assessing what those conditions may be after the fire or the next spring, and a drone can be really useful for that. And then, you know, really, the amount of terrain that we have to cover, the footprint that we have to cover with the employees we have to cover. So resources, labor is hard to come by, right? You just can't keep adding people. And so you try to do more with actually less sometimes.
Yeah.
And so using some of these tools, such as drone, to conduct a lot of this post-incident assessment is really a big savings to us, because one guy can cover a lot of ground with a drone.
Yeah, and this is a multi-year process, right? In many cases,
Yes.
this takes, recovery efforts are ongoing and take a lot of time.
Yep.
Yeah. Alex, how about you guys?
So in a post-incident, we have seen a lot of value in using drone imagery to help characterize impact, right, following a major event. And so, one, it helps us better understand whether or not there was any opportunities that we can, or gaps that we can address. And we tend to have post-critique reviews every time after a major event is done. And so having this intelligence help us assess whether or not the measures that we put in place from a resiliency standpoint are effective. And we have seen a lot of value in using that intelligence. It tells us, hey, the hardening activity that we have in motion worked, right? The reliability projects that we kicked off were effective compared to what we had experienced in the past. And so this is really good intelligence to help us gauge the efficacy of the plans that we're putting forward. The other thing is it helps the public also understand the severity and the scale of the issue. And so we use that as well for communication purposes. This ties a little bit to the situational awareness item that we had, that we started off with.
Yeah.
Really, the expectation ties very neatly with a post-incident objective, right? And that's helping characterize the scale or the impact of the issue, communicating with the public. And let's face it, I mean, the reality is that situational awareness is not a choice. I mean, it's an expectation. And our public and communities are expecting the information quick. And we have the tools to be out there gathering this information, characterizing it appropriately, and making sure that we share it with them. There's other agencies too that also are involved in every major event that we experience. And so it's a tool that helps us connect, build this network with other agencies that have the similar objective of keeping our community members safe. And so that's our intent, that's the approach, and that's what we're going to do.
It's fantastic. I think, you know, obviously the response efforts, there's a lot of insights and knowledge that comes out of these incidents. And broadly sharing those to not only enhance how you guys operate, but also the public and how you coordinate with the public, how your visibility for them to understand the impact and what you're doing to mitigate that impact, right? So there's a lot to learn here, and there's a lot of things that I think generally you guys can, the value you can create out of this. So when we look ahead, I'm gonna ask you, if you look 5 years ahead, what do you need from technology partners like us or others in the marketplace to only increase your awareness and how you react to these incidents? Because I don't think anything's changing, unfortunately. We're all going to be impacted many years ahead, but what can we do to help?
So I'll share with you my perspective, and Mike, feel free to chime in here. I think integrating the different solutions that are coming to us is very valuable. I talked about sensors. I talked about other feeds or inputs that come in to guide the missions that we need done autonomously, quick, be able to gather the intelligence, ingest the information, and then make sense out of it, right? So that we don't have the same number of folks behind computers in a room looking at picture after picture. So that needs to be solved. I learned a lot in this particular program. There's a lot of good developments from an artificial intelligence and machine learning perspective. We met a lot of good folks that we intend to follow up with. There's a lot of traction, I think, in that space, and it's ours to give up. I think we need to use it. And we have already the desire, the interest in making sure that we improve the way we operate the system. both for safety purposes and operational excellence, and ultimately to deliver a bigger value to our communities and customers, right? We're more than just poles and wires.
Yeah.
We're members of our community. We want their communities to thrive, and part of that is keeping them safe and making sure that we keep our system reliable and running. So I think helping us with the integration is a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah. Well, for me, we are expected by our customers. They have an expectation that we're going to perform and do our job. And really, for us, it's the thing I see is I need the equipment to do the same thing. There's times where we have comm issues, right? We have a very tough environment sometimes to establish comms and to get the distances we need. And so when a product doesn't work, it's defeating our purpose, and it becomes a problem for us. So having the product work, and also, it's just a lot of this stuff like we're learning this week or the last couple of days with the AI and the other integrations. I think that's a critical piece too, where we can have line sensors trigger the drone to take the flight out of the dock and then go identify before anybody rolls what the issue is. So I think it's really exciting time. I think there's a lot of really good stuff that's happening, and I'm just excited to see where it all ends up, because there's just a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of things out there we can do.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The connected base layer and the power, and then obviously ultimately trying to bring the solutions together, get the insights faster and more connected into your world so you can take action, right?
Exactly.
So, great. Let's move to Q&A. What questions from the audience?
Awesome.
Nothing? Yeah?
Alex, you mentioned that checking soil conditions was important to your inspection process, and I'm wondering how that impacts your wildfire. I didn't connect the dots there.
Yeah, good question. So one of the things, it would serve as a prioritization variable. If I know that I have infrastructure next to a field with thousands of acres that could be fuel, right, if a fire happens, then the fire typically will start as the surface fire in that particular case, given our vegetation state, right? And so if I'm able to find or identify ground conditions that have organic material that could easily spark and get to those thousands of acres of fuel, that's a problem. That's an issue. That differs from maybe another part of the system that does not have organic material that can kick off a wildfire. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that the other is less important. It just means that it can serve as a prioritization means to direct field activities. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
You bet.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I think we got one right there.
And this is mostly for Mike. So with EPSS, are you still in pilot stage for dispatching drone UAV crews to those locations where it needs to be assessed before you re-energize the line, or is there a percentage that's UAV versus foot patrol?
Yeah, we're still working through all that, but what we've identified is there are areas that the helicopter can go patrol fast, but it can't see everything on the ground because of tree canopies and whatnot. So then your regular patrolman in a pickup truck or four-wheeler is the next quickest tool. But there's some areas that are just really tough to inspect, right? And a drone can do a very good job. So we're definitely in a pilot phase of trying to figure out, hey, where can we've got to get all this mapped out, get our people trained so that we're all working together doing the correct thing. So we're definitely in a pilot phase right now. And it's just one of those things that as the next year we're going to get better at it, and then we're going to get better at it. But right now it's a starting point for us.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Anybody else? All right. Do we have virtual questions? Yeah. Virtual questions. Okay.
So this is being live streamed. So from our virtual audience, we have a few questions. So one person would like to know, are you sharing the risk assessment details with local first responders as a way to give them situational awareness as well?
Who wants to take that?
To my knowledge, no. I do not know the answer to that, but I do not think we are doing that at this point.
Yeah. How about you, Alex?
In our vision of using drones to detect signs of fire, whether regardless of the source of the fire, we have in our plans to build a campaign and a network, right, to collaborate with first responders, not just to share our assessment of threat levels across the state, but also have a mechanism where we can work hand in hand to address wildfire risk and threats.
Yeah, there's a lot of coordination there.
Yeah.
It feels
Yeah.
like there could be, some value to share those across. And obviously, you gotta work through those processes. But
Right.
I'll follow up with that just a little bit too. We do a lot of meetings with these other Forest Service agencies, Bureau of Land Management, and local fire departments and fire districts all throughout these rural communities. And so I don't know, we do share wildfire cameras with them so they can control them. They get notified when our cameras pick up on an ignition, but I don't know as far as like the level of some of our FPI type stuff. I don't think that's shared, but there is a lot of cooperation amongst all the organizations in the communities.
Great. Another question that came in, how long has it taken to get these processes and tools in place?
Okay, so for us, it's been just like drone technology. Period. I'll speak on that to begin with. It's been a very slow, painful process at my company because it's been a thing that nobody really kind of owned, right? And you kind of have to carry this flag all the time and jump up and down, but it's really where you start to gain traction is, and there's a lot of people in the room, and I got in trouble for calling their name out last year, but there are the people at some of these larger companies, and they have helped us get going. They've helped us. They've shared their knowledge. Events like this where we all network again, that gives me a lot of good use cases, good data to go build my program. And really, I think really the thing that's driven this the most for us is the threat of wildfire. And just the intelligence that we can get that you really can't really get any other way is so important in reducing our risk. That's really just given us a lot of traction, and all these, it's just a slow process building our SOPs, building our training program, and so forth.
I think it's always evolving, right? You feel like it's a constant evolution, and as do technologies and stuff. But I don't know, Alex, if you have anything to add there.
So one thing that I'd like to clarify in this particular question, the processes that we've had are effective. I mean, that's the reason why we have them, right? And we repeat them. Asset renewal type of programs, right? Vegetation management practices. So we have the key components in motion. What we're uncovering is we're looking to unlock the potential of these new tools, the artificial intelligence, bring them together to enhance what's already working. Because we can see the value in getting there faster, right? And we can see the value in better utilizing the limited resources that we have. And so, but as far as implementation, I mean, that's the reason why I exposed the challenge, right? That I think all of us should embrace is how do we bring these solutions together, right? Where you bring them into a platform that quickly allows you to trigger action. And so I think we got to work on that as a community. I don't know that there's one solution that's the silver bullet. I love drones, but I recognize that a drone alone, right, can only do so much.
Absolutely.
If I couple that with 3 or 4 other solutions that are providing intelligence, then that's more powerful. The idea is, how do I get there? And so technology is just unfolding super fast, right? And what we have to get used to is moving just as quick.
It's good. All right, well, guys, thank you so very much. What great insights that you guys provide, and I hope the fire season ends very soon, and I hope the impact isn't as it's not as bad coming up. Couple items to follow up. We've got a couple QR codes here as well around our condition-based maintenance approach, and then a great demo with Dominion Energy. So again, Alex, Mike, thank you very much for coming out today and sharing your insights. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.